for generations.
Dates in the Bible don't quite match the marriage certificate. Uh-oh.
You have found us. It's America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes, and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, and welcome to a classic rewind of a show that originally aired in September of 2017. Well, welcome aboard. Nice to have you. What a guest I've got lined up for today. Very excited to be talking to Lieutenant Colonel Enoch Woodhouse. He's a World War II vet. He was a Tuskegee Airman. I had the privilege of meeting him in Boston, Massachusetts back in August. And what a delight. What great stories he's got for you. We're going to do a two-part visit with him starting in about 9 minutes. And I'm also excited to announce the creation of our Extreme Genes Patrons Club. You can go to ExtremeGenes.com, click on the Patrons Club. It'll link you to a site called Patreon.com. And this is a place where people can be patrons for the show. And we give you all kinds of great rewards in exchange for it for as little as $1 a month. And it can include acknowledgement on the website. It can include early access to our podcasts, special bonus podcasts for members only a couple of times a month. So sign up now at ExtremeGenes.com on the Patrons Club page, or just go to patreon.com/ExtremeGenes. And speaking of David Allen Lambert, the chief is in the house, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. How are you, David?
Hey, I'm back in Beantown after having a great week in Pittsburgh with Tom Perry and all of our listeners that dropped by both Tom's booth and the NEHGS booth at the FGS, Federation of Genealogical Societies Conference.
Well,
it was great.
It sounded like a great time for a lot of genies gathering there. And while you were gone, I was busy collecting more family history for myself. I couldn't believe this. You know, I talk about this all the time because it's so much fun. Finding things relating to your family on eBay. And you have to put in search terms, and then hopefully once in a while something will come up. And maybe once or twice a year I find something and I go, wait a minute, I got to have that. And in this case, it was a handwritten invoice on the letterhead of my great-grandfather's New York City firm from 1881. I couldn't believe it.
You're kidding me.
No. Isn't that amazing? And here's the kicker to this thing. I was trying to figure out, all right, when is this going to show up in my mailbox? And so I looked to see where the seller was located. Houston, Texas.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Right in the middle of all this. So I had an email exchange with this guy, and he said, oh, yeah, our neighborhood somehow stayed high and dry, despite the fact we're surrounded by two bayous that are running like the Mississippi River. And so remember last week we were talking about all the family history stuff that was lost in the Houston area, and, you know, the photo albums and all the memories that went with it, and what a tragedy that in itself is, yet alone the lost homes and all the property. But it never would have occurred to me that perhaps some of my own family history could have been lost in something like that, or anybody's anywhere in the country, maybe even in the world. Think of like family Bible records, right? Could apply to anybody anywhere.
Well, you know, this is a good point, and this leads me to my first story for Family Histoire News. Thinking about what we've lost, a great article in the Houston Chronicle called Washed Away Family Recipe Cards really touches upon that. If you lose early family recipes, how can you resurrect them again other than memory?
No question. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are trying to write down what they remembered from their great aunts and their grandmothers and their great-grandmothers, and these little boxes with these cards that have been passed down. I mean, what a loss.
It really is. I hope that some people will share them more with family members. That way they're distributed more amongst the families, so less likelihood they'll get destroyed again.
Exactly.
Well, we now have a new world's oldest man. Mr. Francisco Nunez Oliveira is almost 113. In fact, he'll be 113 in December. But he is living in Spain, and he's in relatively good health, aside from having a kidney removed when he was 90, cataract operation at 98, and a recent urinary infection when he was a mere 108 years old. And he has good genes, Fish.
Yes.
His brother's 95, and his sister's 93.
That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. 93. I mean, he's almost old enough to be his sister's father.
On a next episode of Extreme Genes, we'll talk about that possibility.
Exactly. All right. And he's in Spain, by the way. And, of course, the only way you get the title of world's oldest man is for somebody else to pass away. So congratulations. Enjoy the title while you've got it.
Well, here's one for the genealogical research books. In India, a court will now grant a woman divorce for lack of a home toilet.
Now, what happened here?
Well, a lady had been married for 5 years and forced to, find other places to go in her nearby field because she didn't have a toilet at home. She petitioned the court for a divorce, and it was granted.
And they said it was basically cruelty, I would assume, right?
Mm-hmm. Unusual cruelty. Can you imagine in the United States this being an issue? I mean, at least in the 1800s, we had outhouses.
Yeah, good point. And for many of these women, they actually have to go out into a field, and because of modesty issues, they have to wait till nighttime.
Well, I tip my hat to these ladies, and 100 years from now, we'll be reading these records in India and saying, really? Someone actually had to put up with that?
Right.
My next story takes us to East Devon, England, where there is a castle known as Woodbury Castle dating back to 500 to 300 BC. It's an earthwork Iron Age fort. Fish, they're restoring it so you can go and visit it and see it the way it was.
Wow. All right. For people who are not aware, David, when was the Iron Age?
This one dates from 2,500 years ago to 500 to 300 BC.
Unbelievable. Wow. Wouldn't that be fun to see?
Who knows what ancestors were there?
Exactly.
And don't forget, each week on AmericanAncestors.org, you can check out our free guest member databases. In fact, we've made some recent updates to the Massachusetts Archdiocese of Boston records, 1789 to 1900, where we're constantly adding volumes to it digitally, as well as preserving them for the Archdiocese himself. Well, that's what I have for you this week from Beantown Fish. Talk to you next week before I head off to the Maine Genealogical Society in Northport, Maine for their annual meeting.
All right. So great to talk to you as always, David. Talk to you next week. And coming up next in 3 minutes, we're going to stay in Boston. We're going to talk to Lieutenant Colonel Enoch Woodhouse. He's a World War II vet, a Tuskegee Airman. He has lived so much history. You're going to want to hear his stories. Coming right up on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've worked with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476 or register online to get a free estimate. Right now, you can save up to $100 on professional genealogy research. But hurry, this offer expires at the end of the month. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries.
Did you know that Family Search Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free Family Search Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to download the Family Search Family Tree mobile app today.
Hey, Genies, Fisher here with a shout out to our Patrons Club members at patreon.com/Extreme Genes. This is where friends of the show support Extreme Genes for as little as $1 a month, all the way up to the cost of a very nice burger each month. I mean, a really juicy one. You can support the show and enjoy various special Patrons Club member benefits, such as acknowledgement on extremegenes.com, special bonus podcasts from expert guests like Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, C.C. Moore, your genetic genealogist, great storytellers and experts on record sets from all over the world. We even offer expert advice on specific questions challenging your research. So go to patreon.com/extremegenes and get signed up. We love sharing your genealogical journey with you on our Extreme Genes Patrons Club. After all, what would you rather have? Inspiring and informative content or another greasy burger? The choice is yours. And thanks for supporting Extreme Genes. And welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and extremegenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And this segment of our show is brought to you by 23andme.com DNA. And it was about a month ago. I was in Boston, Massachusetts, taking a tour of the Old South Church there with the minister, Nancy Taylor. And she said, hey, wait a minute. I got somebody you're going to want to meet. And holding court by the back row of pews was a 91-year-old gentleman who she introduced me to as Enoch Woodhouse, a Tuskegee Airman. And so many people just are gravitating to Colonel Woodhouse because of the fact that he's got such a personality. Colonel Woodhouse, I don't think you've ever met a stranger.
No, I haven't. Everyone may be a stranger initially, but after 2 or 3 minutes, to me, they're a human being until they prove otherwise. And it was a pleasure meeting you. We've had wonderful conversations, so we can resume our interview.
Absolutely, and I was honored that you would ask me to call you Woody, but I think you must do that with everybody after a day or two.
No, not everyone. I want you to know that you are the select few.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. When we talk about family history, we tend to think about people who are dead and gone in the past. And I think most of us, most individuals tend to think, oh, our kids aren't going to care much about what we did. In your case, I'm sure your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids are very interested in your history, especially the way it started out as a Tuskegee Airman. How was it you wound up with that famous group?
Back to December 7th, 1941. It was a Sunday morning when it was announced that the Japanese Empire had launched an attack on Pearl Harbor. Now, can you imagine my mother, a black woman, was shocked, but what she said to my brother and I, her 2 sons, all that she had in the world, was that, boys, we're at war. I want you to do your duty to defend our country. Can you imagine a woman of color saying to the 2 possessions she owns that they must defend our country when black people were being lynched and segregated and still denied the right to vote?
Unbelievable. And where were you living at that time, Woody?
We were living in public housing in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
People say, where are you from? I was born in Boston, but I always say Roxbury because that was the Harlem of Boston, and I'm proud of it, and I have my roots there. I consider myself a colored kid from Roxbury.
Okay, so she wanted you to do your duty, wanted your brother to do his thing. What did you do at that point now? It's almost 1942.
Well, the first thing we both did was to complete high school.
Okay.
I graduated in 1944, and my brother graduated in 1945. I graduated in June of 1944, but in those times, you could take out your enlistment papers in your senior year in high school. And many boys did just that. So with 3 or 4 months in March or April of my senior year, I was at the Army recruiting getting the information. And 1 June, I enlisted and was sworn in.
And they shipped you off to where?
I might sound circuitous to you and to our audience, but the worst thing you can do is ask a trial lawyer a question. You'll get everything, perhaps, but the answer.
Right.
The answer will be at the end, but he has to give the background. To answer your question directly, my first duty assignment was in Texas, Shepherd Field, Wichita Falls, Texas. Now, let me tell you what happened there. We got on the train, all of us young kids, patriotic with our new khaki uniforms. We go from South Station, and we got to Chicago. We were still laughing and joking together. And from Chicago, we got to St. Louis, laughing and joking together. And we got to St. Louis, and as we were pulling out, we were going from St. Louis to Texas, and that line at that time was called the MKT, Missouri, Kansas, Texas line. Now, as we were pulling out, about to pull out, the conductor comes to the train, "Get off the train, get off the train." And we were all 17-year-old kids. You know, we were looking around thinking there was a spy on board the train. The conductor comes up and not too gently taps me on the shoulder and says, "Get off the train. You can't ride this train." And, of course, I was shocked, embarrassed in front of my classmates and friends, whom I never saw again since. So I got off the train. Now, when I was on the platform, I had to get my duffel bag, 30 or 40 pounds. Here I'm sitting on the platform, train pulls out, and a black porter comes up and says, "Son, where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Boston, Massachusetts." So he says, "Well, have you ever been south before?" I said, "Well, I've been to New York a couple of times." That's about it. He said, "Well, you know, we can't ride that train." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "There's a train that's coming along for us later on." I said, "How soon?" He said, "Oh, about 8 or 9 hours later."
Oh, my goodness.
I said, "What are you talking about 8 or 9 hours?" So he says, "Well, you can sit over in the colored section." And then he says, "I can bring you some food." Now, I was the only person on that platform. There were no other persons of color that's going to be at a train platform 7 or 8 hours before the train leaves.
And this is your introduction now to life in the military and to different parts of the country than you'd ever been exposed to before.
Well, it's not different parts of the country, but this was still America, as I felt, wearing the uniform to defend America from fascism and Nazism. But that's ahead of the story. But I want to put in this. Before I left Boston, and this was the custom in the black community at that time, when any of our servicemen were leaving, the local community would give him or her a few dollars to go off. And I had perhaps $14 in my pocket, which was given me by my parents and other people that had slipped a few dollars before I left for the country. So, needless to say, I had to wait till the next train came, which is another story.
Wow. And so you wound up where to start your career with the Tuskegee Airmen?
Well, that Tuskegee Airman was 2 years later, because I served as an enlisted man in all black segregated squadrons of the United States Army Air Corps in what is called Squadron F. Now, the U.S. Army Air Corps at that time would designate by letters the function and mission of that squadron. You'd have A for administration. These were all people that were administrators.
Right.
You'd have other initials for flying and maintenance. But for all black personnel at a United States Army air installation, the squadron was designated F. And F's function and mission were as follows. Housekeeping. That means you clean the streets.
Right.
You drove the trucks. You served as truck drivers in the motor pool. You served as fuel attendants for the refueling missions for the bombers that came in at Hillfield. And you served sometimes in the two best jobs that a black serviceman could have, which was a waiter in a white jacket at the officers' club, which meant you ate good food. You didn't have to eat horse meat.
Right.
And the other was where you could have your Class A uniforms and be a driver for the motor pool. You drive the officers from the flight line back to the BOQ, or you drive them over from Hillfield to Fort Douglas or over to Salt Lake.
So you were stationed in Utah late in World War II.
Yes, and Austin, Utah had the unique distinction of being a stockade for German POWs.
Yes.
And the German POWs, sad to say, ate better food than we black enlisted men for the United States Army Air Corps. And the other incident was the German POWs could sit anywhere within their group in the theater, but the black GIs, we had to sit in the last rows of the same theater.
You've got to be kidding me. So the German prisoners actually got better seating in the theater than you did?
Yes. They sat in their group where they wanted. If they wanted to sit front, they could sit. If they wanted to sit in the middle, they could. We blacks sat in the back as on the bus.
All right, we're going to take a break right now. I'm talking to Lieutenant Colonel Enoch Woodhouse. He's a former member of the famed Tuskegee Airmen. He's in Boston, Massachusetts. He's 91 years old, and it's a great visit. We're going to get to more coming up next in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history. Scientific studies have proven that youth who know even a little bit about their family history perform better academically and have a greater sense of personal confidence and stability. Genealogy is its own incredible superpower that arms our children with super strength. But how do you get your child or grandchild interested in studying their family history? That kind of stuff is just for grandmas, right? Not anymore. ZapTheGrandmaGap.com leaps the generation gap in a single bound. Author Janet Havorka provides you with useful and timely advice on helping the young people in your life become engaged in their own family history. Janet has an entire collection of books to inspire the young and the young at heart in fun, interactive ways. She also offers creative tips and advice on her blog and in her free weekly newsletter. Stop by ZapTheGrandmaGap.com today to sign up for Janet's free email newsletter with 52 weeks of easy tips, free downloads, and order your set of resource books and workbooks.
And we are back. It's Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. This segment is brought to you by LegacyTree.com, and I'm continuing my conversation with Lieutenant Colonel Enoch Woodhouse of Boston, Massachusetts. Woody is a former Tuskegee Airman, and he's been sharing with us some of his memories of his time in the service late in World War II in Utah, and then it was on to the Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, you had a long career. How long were you in the military, Woody?
I was in the military active for 6 years and approximately 22 years as reserve as a JAG officer. That's Judge Advocate General. That is the legal department for the military.
Yeah, so you were an attorney, and when did you become an attorney?
In 1956.
1956.
I like to pride myself on being the only living lawyer that when he was sworn in before the United States Supreme Court, he was welcomed by Mr. Justice Felix Frankfurter, and he welcomed me and said he hoped he'd see me again before him. And needless to say, I didn't make it because my clients couldn't afford it.
Yes, I would imagine that's true. So before you became a JAG, you were in the Airmen. When did that start, and how did that come about?
Well, the thing about being designated what they call DOTA, D-O-T-A, Documented Original Tuskegee Airman, all black officers in the United States Army Air Corps, later to become the United States Air Force. If you were black and you were an officer or enlisted in the air arm, you were put into one unit. That one unit was commanded by, at that time, Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr.,
Yes.
332nd Fighter Wing. Being black, being in that all unit, we were all designated Tuskegee Airmen because all aviators or pilots or ground crews were trained at one installation. That was at Moton Field, Tuskegee, Alabama. Hence, we were designated as Tuskegee Airmen.
So you had a lot of experience, obviously, with many of these men who dealt with an awful lot of combat missions. What was that like? What was the culture there? Obviously, a lot of pride, I would assume, after so much was accomplished at the end of World War II.
Well, the thing people ask me when I go around speaking, I always respond when asked, how does it feel to be segregated in an all-black unit? To me, segregation sucks big time. But to be with the most outstanding officers, black, white, or Asian, who were all tops in their own respective fields, to me was inspirational and enlightening. Example, our flight surgeon, Vance H. Marchbanks Jr., we called him Shoulders. He was the one that designed the spacesuit, and we're trying to have him so recognized at NASA. We had Paul Byrd, meteorologist. We had PhDs for MIT. We had Lee Archer, who shot down 4.5 aircraft, all outstanding men. And these are the men that I served with. And the reason people ask me, well, how did X, Y, and Z know you? I said, they knew me because I was the paymaster. And the paymaster at that time paid you in U.S. currency. No checks, no online accounts, no eBay, nothing. You paid in U.S. currency. So if your pay was $322.15, you were paid that in U.S. currency down to the last dime. How I got to know Colonel Davis on an intimate basis as a junior officer, my duty was to pay him personally in his office, standing at attention. And you know the base commander was not going to wait in the officer's pay line to get paid.
Right. All right, so let's talk about your family history a little bit here, Woody. You go back to Boston. You mentioned you're from Roxbury, but you've told me some things off air about some of your ancestors. Share some of those stories with us, and then I want to hear what your thoughts are on what they might think about all you've accomplished in your life?
Well, I'd like to start with my father and grandfather. Now, the name Woodhouse was given as a result of rendering a service for one of the first governors of the Virginia plantation, Sir Robert Woodhouse, one of the first governors of the Virginia plantation before North Carolina, South Carolina was states. This was a plantation.
So this goes way back.
Oh, yeah. So we pride ourselves, the Woodhouses, on getting our freedom the American way. We earned it. Lincoln didn't free us. As a matter of fact, Lincoln only freed about 70 or 80% of blacks at that time. The majority of blacks were free, and some blacks had slaves themselves. But that's another story.
Yes.
Now, my father was a AME Zion minister, and he gave me the insight to do good, to do the unthinkable, to do the unspeakable. One of his good friends was a rabbi in the Jewish community, which was part black at that time. And the other priest he started out was Richard Cushing. My father, this is the way he taught, and this is the way I was raised, in sort of a faith-based way of living.
You attend 2 churches now, don't you?
Well, sometimes 3. You miss the Third Catholic Church, and I tell a lot of my friends that I go to more Catholic masses than they do. And also LDS, not services, but at some of their meetings that they do in the ecumenical fashion. But on my father's side, my grandfather did an unusual thing, and this is germane to the gene part of it. My paternal grandmother was an Indian, Tuskegee from North Carolina. Now, she did the unusual thing of marrying up. She married a black man, my grandfather, who was free and a landowner. Now, their marriage was a kibosh on both their houses. The blacks didn't want her because they think my grandfather, a black property owner and free, should marry a black woman. But he married an Indian, and they called her an Indian squaw. Now, when she married him, both groups shunned them both. The blacks, because of her marriage, and of course the tribe did the usual thing. They kicked her out of the tribe.
Right.
So with that, they were married in Elizabeth City, but for some reason they couldn't survive together as a marital unit. So my grandmother did the unthinkable thing. She came north to Boston with my father and 2 other children. And incidentally, we all have biblical names. I'm Enoch. My father's Enoch. His brother was Daniel. And, of course, my 2 aunts. What other names could you have but Ruth and Naomi?
Yes, of course. He's Lieutenant Colonel Enoch Woodhouse from Boston, Massachusetts, a former Tuskegee Airman, and just an amazing gentleman. Thank you so much, Woody, for coming on, and it's been an honor and pleasure to talk with you, and thanks for sharing your history, your family's history with us. 91 years young, still standing tall and erect, sharp as a tack, and getting out and living life.
Thank you. God bless America.
Thank you, Colonel Woodhouse. What an honor. Tom Perry comes up next to talk preservation in 3 minutes.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've worked with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll toll-free at 1-800-818-1476 or register online to get a free estimate. Right now, you can save up to $100 on professional genealogy research. But hurry, this offer expires at the end of the month. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries.
Did you know that Family Search Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free Family Search Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to download the Family Search Family Tree mobile app today.
Hey, Genies, Fisher here with a shout out to our Patrons Club members at patreon.com/Extreme Genes. This is where friends of the show support Extreme Genes for as little as $1 a month, all the way up to the cost of a very nice burger each month. I mean, a really juicy one. You can support the show and enjoy various special Patrons Club member benefits, such as acknowledgement on extremegenes.com, special bonus podcasts from expert guests like Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, C.C. Moore, your genetic genealogist, great storytellers and experts on record sets from all over the world. We even offer expert advice on specific questions challenging your research. So go to patreon.com/extremegenes and get signed up. We love sharing your genealogical journey with you on our Extreme Genes Patrons Club. After all, what would you rather have? Inspiring and informative content or another greasy burger? The choice is yours. And thanks for supporting Extreme Genes. And we are back. It's America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and extremegenes.com. My name is Fisher. I am your congenial host. And this segment is brought to you by myheritage.com. And it's time to check in with Tom Perry from tmcplace.com, continuing his preservation tour. You're in Utah this week, Tom.
Right. We have the big Utah State Fair that we're at right now. So if you're in town, come on down. We're having scanning parties. We're doing a special fundraiser to raise some money to go help the people in Houston to preserve some of the things that they've had damaged during these horrendous flooding.
That's in Salt Lake City, right?
Right. That's in Salt Lake City, Utah. This state fair is huge. I mean, they get neighboring people to come in. It's really, really big fair. A lot of fun. Mention Extreme Genes, and we'll give you a free ticket to come back another day. Plus, we'll do any scanning you have to do right there at the fair for half price. And all that money will go to preservation tour to get to Houston and help them try and recover some of their memories.
Awesome. All right, we've got this email. We started on this last week, Tom. Jay Todd was asking you a bunch of questions because he's created 6 different family histories that he's trying to put on 4 different flash drives, then make all these copies. And we covered some of that. And then he talked about this. He said, I'd like what is on the DVD-R transferred to 16 flash drives of fine quality, likely 8 or 16 gigs because that's what they sell these days. He said, I prefer flash drives with a slip-on protective end over the open end of the flash drive unless you talk me out of it. Why would you talk him out of that?
Oh, no, absolutely. That's one thing you want. In fact, I'm going to upgrade it a little bit. The ones that we sell in our store, it's actually a silicone, and it almost looks like, well, it does. It looks like a wristband. And so you're not going to lose those end caps. You set them down, they fall off your desk, they fall in your garbage can, and you lose them. Well, we use it. It looks just like a wristband because it is a wristband. And then when you put it together, it's actually a silicone cover over it. And we actually had a customer that actually said they lost their thumb drive, they couldn't find it, and then they realized they had washed their pants. And they went to their pants, and it was still in the circle, and it was still hooked up, and they were scared to death, and they went and plugged it in, and it worked fine. But do not try this at home. I do not recommend that.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
But, yeah, that's the best kind, because, I mean, those snap-on things are good. You know, the ones that just pull out and stuff, they're so easy to get lint in them and all kinds of stuff that's going to mess them up. And if you do run into a problem, what you want to do is get a new toothbrush, one that's never had toothpaste on it, and very gently kind of get the bristles in there and kind of move it back and forth, and that will clean a lot of the dust and stuff out. So if you have a flash drive that's not working, that's a good recommendation that sometimes can get it to work. So try that if there's dirt and dust. That happens all the time. Same thing with iPhones. I have people say, hey, I've got an iPhone and it won't charge anymore. Well, it's got so much crap in that little place where you put the plug in. Just get a brand new toothbrush. It can't just be a dry toothbrush because it could still have toothpaste in it. It's going to be dry and it's going to ruin it. So just get that brush in there and kind of clean it out very gently. Don't do it too hard. Just kind of do it and then plug it in, see if it works, and just do that a few times. And that will work on your iPhones. That works on about anything. But they get dust from your pockets and all kinds of things. But I agree with you 100%. You want the kind to have a cover on them. And I prefer a silicone cover because it's kind of flexible and it'll actually fit tighter around it. We sell them in 16 gig, 32 gig. They come in all different sizes. But get the one that looks just like a wristband and then just plugs into itself. So that way you'll never, ever lose the cap. You can hook it on your purse strap, put it around your wrist, do just about anything you want with it, and it's a really good drive. But always back them up in the cloud. Never totally rely on USB drives or anything. Put it in the cloud, put it on your hard drive, put it on a disk.
These thumb drives, though, I mean, they've long been cheap, temporary solutions, right? But now they're getting so much better.
Oh, they are. They're so much better. The last order we got of them, you can just see the quality's better. When they first came out, they were just a quickie thing. But I'm still a little bit apprehensive to use them as long-term storage, only relying on them for long-term storage.
All right, Tom, we got to take a break. We're going to come back in 3 minutes. Let's talk about the hurricanes and what people can do to preserve and perhaps recover some of the materials they've lost in natural disasters. That's in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history.
When was the last time you heard your grandmother's voice or saw your family enjoying life back in the 1950s or 60s? If the reason is you haven't known what to do with your old recordings, videos, and films, here's your answer. The Multimedia Center in Salt Lake City.
We brought in a video project to the Multimedia Center, and overnight they duplicated it to DVD so we could meet our deadline.
The Multimedia Center, 2870 East, 3300 South, Salt Lake City. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Call 801-483-1717 or go to transferduplication.com.
Genies, it's Fisher with exciting news. The Weekly Genie, the official newsletter of Extreme Genes, is here. It's your Monday morning briefing on what's happening in the world of genealogy and family history and on Extreme Genes. Get all the details of jaw-dropping stories of discovery and keep up with the latest techniques in family history research. Get to know more about your favorite Extreme Genes personalities. And it's free. Sign up for the Weekly Genie now at extremegenes.com or the Extreme Genes Facebook page. And when you do, you'll receive David Allen Lambert's Top 10 Tips for Beginning Genealogists from the Chief Genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society. Sign up today for the Weekly Genie. It is our final segment of Extreme Genes for this week, America's Family History Show. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, talk and preservation with our preservation authority, Tom Perry from tmcplace.com. On the road in Salt Lake City, Utah, at the Utah State Fair. You're doing the scanning party out there. And I also understand you're at, Weber State University. That's in Ogden, Utah this weekend as well.
Yeah, we're too tiny.
But there's no scanning going on in Ogden, right?
Right. Ogden, we're just there to talk to people, help people, give them ideas. I'm teaching a couple of classes of stories from Extreme Genes.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. Now, let's talk about this natural disaster situation. Last week, we talked a little about what people need to do to preserve their photographs if they were, say, in the Houston area and they have pictures sticking together, and how you can work to get those things dried out without damaging them so they can ultimately be scanned and those images recovered. But in Florida now, we have a whole different situation. People hunkering down right now. We should talk about preventative measures in a natural disaster like this. What are your thoughts on that, Tom?
Yeah, that's a good idea. You know, this is where the beautiful Ziploc bag comes into play, and they're so cheap. You can go to the dollar store where you can buy a pack of like 20 of them for $1. And all you need to do is put your photos in there, seal them up, put them on a high shelf. If you can take them with you, fine. But there's usually just too much stuff, and they come in all different sizes. And one thing, if you have a whole bunch of them, especially like photos, we talk about afterwards doing the rice thing to help dry them out. But like you say, preventative maintenance is so important. Make sure those things are Ziploc bag. You can double tape them, do all kinds of things. If you're in a high humidity place, you want to make sure you have dehumidifiers, because if you go and seal them in the bag and then there's humidity in there, it can cause damage. Not as bad as any of the hurricane waters are going to cause or any flood waters, but you have to be really, really careful. And go back to one of our episodes where we teach you how to put the uncooked rice in a cheesecloth wrap. You need to take these preventative measures, but then, you know, that's great. If you missed this or some of them didn't work for you, then you need to make sure you do the right thing. You need to have your photographs when they're still wet. That's when you take them apart. Don't try taking them apart when they're dry, because you'll ruin them. We talked a little bit about videotapes and audio tapes last week, and one thing we didn't get into is, besides, you know, when we talked about draining them, if you have any that have had really dirty water in them, or you've had mud or anything like that that creeps into them, what you want to do is you want to make some distilled water baths. And so you want to get the tape in there, put it in the first one, then put it in the second one, have about 3 or 4 baths until it's pretty much clear. And you can use that over and over again. But when your other ones start getting dirty, dump it out and start with new, fresh distilled water, because otherwise you're going to get mold and things like that in them. You want to make sure you do all those kind of things to get rid of the mold. If you've already got mold, we still have another way we can transfer them. But every step you miss is going to make it that much harder and that much more expensive to get your stuff recovered. So follow these different paths and make sure you get everything right. Same thing with your photos. If you have mud and stuff on them, don't try scraping them off. If they're still wet, get them in some distilled water. Let them sit there and soak, but be very, very careful. Because if you soak them too long, you don't want to touch the face of them, because you can wipe the emulsion right off, especially negatives.
Oh, I hate hearing things like that. This is such a trying time for so many people at the most fundamental levels, food and shelter. But then when the recovery comes, the hard part is when you've lost all your memories. And this is what we're trying to help avoid for so many people along harm's way right now. Tom, thanks so much for your time. Good luck at the Utah State Fair in Salt Lake City, Utah, and have a lot of fun with the genies there.
Will do. My pleasure.
Hey, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. And just a reminder, we have just launched our shiny, brand new Extreme Genes Patrons Club on Patreon.com. You can go to Patreon.com/ExtremeGenes, or just click on Patrons Club at ExtremeGenes.com. It'll take you right there. It's a great way to support the show by becoming a member. And for anywhere from $1 to $8 a month, you can take advantage of great benefits, such as early access to podcasts, free members-only bonus podcasts with a lot of great experts. So check it out. Talk to you again next week. Thanks for joining us. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.